Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Ellie.
I'm Jared Warnagle.
And I'm Will Meldon.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at genies. Not genies, genies. I'm still probably overdoing it. They're even closer than that. There is the genie with a Genie category in the Monster Manual that consists of the four genies, the Tao, the Freddy, the Merid, and the Genie. That's the one we're covering. That's the one of air. No idea why they did that. It makes no sense. It's complicated. It's going to make this hard to talk about, but we're doing it anyways.
This is the one from Aladdin.
Kinda, yeah.
Which I guess is also just a classic genie. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not doing all four. We're just doing the one. I don't know why we started this one because it's the most complicated one to start with, just because of the stupid name.
I know why.
Because you want to use it in the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I like when you guys give me ideas that I can then turn back on you.
Yeah. And you always wait just long enough where we never quite remember the details. I was like, shit, we can't take advantage of our knowledge.
Like 3 days, you'll have the memory of goldfish. Like
I remember all of it. But I'm so good at role-playing my new character, I don't actually.
The 6 intelligence barbarian. Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps. Easy to roleplay that.
All right, so in Dungeons & Dragons, genies are elementals, and there is one for each of the elements. And the genie, which we're covering today, is the air one. Any of the types, they're formed when a soul finds themselves on the elemental plane of whatever particular element, and there's something special about them that fuses with the elements, and a genie is born. The soul is used as just a building block. There's no... whoever that person was is not really retained in any way, except for maybe a couple personality quirks coming through. And the new genie is born. They are pretty much all universally arrogant, see themselves as some of the best beings in the planes. They really only see the gods as above them, and that shows in how they act and their approach to other mortals, or just not mortals, just other creatures, as enslavement is huge for all four of them. Seen as slaves as a possession, and a genie, hard G genie, that doesn't have to hold on to slaves is not worth anything. It's a point of pride for them. The genie, Djinni, genie, that we are covering today is no different. As I said, this is the one of air. And it, in terms of what in our pop culture, at least within US culture, it's kind of what we picture as the stereotypical genie. As Jared said, it's like the one from Aladdin. It's blue. It comes out of a lamp.
Grants wishes. I mean, not the base one, but it can.
Right. And we'll get to all that.
One thing that is kind of interesting about these ones is their way of treating their slaves. It specifically says they treat them more like servants, deserving of kindness and protection, and they part with them reluctantly. So I guess that's enough to get them the chaotic good alignment, even though they're still taking slaves.
I did not pick up on that. I knew that bit of flavor. I did not realize these were the ones that were chaotic good.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
shitty.
just excusing the shitty person's behavior because they're like, oh, well, they've got good intentions. It's like, what are you talking about? So
also, in this case, they don't have good intentions.
They
still just keep them as slaves that they treat kind of nice.
Chaotic good. Pew pew pew.
Letting them to be free. God, that's a really just poor design choice. I didn't pick up on that. That says a lot of really kind of problematic things, doesn't it?
It's a reason why alignments are kind of going away in 1D&D. It's just there's sometimes just too complex to try and put into 2 words to describe what your moral compass is.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's dive into the stat block. All right, so these are challenge rating 11. They are large elemental. As Jared said, chaotic good. For some reason, I would recommend scrapping that. They hold slaves. They're evil. Armor class 17, hit points 161, a speed of 30 feet, and a fly speed of 90. So really fast fly speed, and definitely probably going to be utilized in the fight, and something we will circle back to, just kind of talking a bit on how to best fight flying creatures. Strength of 21, Dex of 15, Con of 22, Int of 15, Wisdom of 16, and Charisma of 20. So the lowest stat they have is 15. So fantastic across the board. Saving throws of Dex plus 6, Wisdom plus 7, and Charisma plus 9. And immune to lightning and thunder. Makes a lot of sense since they're the air elemental genies. Dark vision out to 20 feet. Languages Auron.
Yeah, that's
I forgot to
the
look into that one.
elemental,
I've missed that. Yeah, okay.
seldom
Huh. You would
used.
think that you would think common would be in there.
It
I
doesn't
missed
need
that
to be
when I was
because they have tongues.
the spell. That's annoying that they have to use one of their 3-day spell slots. I guess 3 days each. Okay,
Yeah, and tongues isn't
it's
like
innate.
it
Yeah.
lasts an
Okay.
hour or two, so for 3 hours a day they can speak in common. It's probably not ever going to come up where there's going to be a language barrier that can't be overcome.
Right. That's a fair point. Okay, for in terms of features, elemental demise, if the genie dies, its body disintegrates into a warm breeze, leaving behind only equipment the genie was wearing or carrying. And I know the official pronunciation is not as genie; it's like still much closer to genie. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to just overdo it.
It's going to get worse
Uh,
and worse by the end of the episode.
oh
It's
yeah,
just Genie.
genie. They have innate spell casting, DC 17 spell save, and +9 to hit, so pretty high there, as to probably be expected with a literal genie. At will, they can cast Detect Evil and Good, Detect Magic, and Thunder Wave.
Yeah, and so with Thunderwave being an at-will spell, that means that's probably going to be or it could be a thing that they use a lot. But with this being a monster manual stat block, it's still set up where it's an entire one of their actions to cast a spell. And since it's an at will spell, they don't have spell slots like a regular caster. Um, they can only cast a first level Thunder Wave at will, which makes it actually not that impressive at all compared
No.
to any other way they can do damage.
Yeah, 2d8 thunder damage in a 15-foot cube that originates from them. And so it's not even like at all, it's not even like a surrounded thing. Like they're a side of it, and it's a cube coming out
Yeah. So if everybody
for
groups up
2d8.
real
Yeah.
close, it might be worthwhile, but otherwise it is actually really not worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
And then
Detect Magic.
detect magic is
Oh,
good. That's obviously
yeah, I think it
flavorful.
just makes sense for when interacting with these, because there's a really good chance you're not just outright just fighting these like a random encounter or just a monster in a dungeon. Probably interactions with them and them being able to just inherently know what's magical, magic items. You get a sense of all that. Know if someone's under the effect of a spell. It is very very fitting. If a certain type of creature is going to know, it's going to be a genie, and so you're not like tricking them in that way.
Right. Detect evil and good. I couldn't really think of a reason why they'd have that at will.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because genies need to know that kind of thing.
All right.
Why?
I will.
Why?
Nope. I don't need any
Nope.
elaboration on that.
I want elaboration. Why?
Because they meet lots of people. I don't know.
If I met a lot of people, I also would want to know if they were maybe disguising themselves as celestials, or vice versa. That's
I don't
it.
know why they would care.
If the party tries to do some trick on the genie where they are pretending that they're all fiends, then the genie will see right through that.
Great.
That is the justification.
And why would you need to pretend you're all fiends and do a trick?
Masquerade
So
ball.
they also have.
What?
What were you gonna say, Jared?
What'd you say, Will?
I was moving on. Masquerade ball, though. You can't just throw
Okay,
that
I
out.
did hear you
So
right.
the genie
Okay.
has a masquerade ball every year that invites one type of creature that comes from the creatures list in the monster manual. And this year it's fiends.
Okay.
And the party needs to
Okay.
get in
Right.
to the party.
Yeah. Obviously, this is what
Okay.
Wizards of the Coast was thinking about when they put Detect Evil and Good in
Yes.
there. So I'm on board.
Masquerade ball.
Masquerade ball.
Okay. Beautiful.
Just let's go on
Okay.
to the next spells.
Yeah. 3 times a day each. Create food and water, and they can also create wine instead of water. Tongues and windwalk. So as talked about, tongues kind of gets rid of any language barrier. It's basically 3 hours of being able to understand and speak any language. Create food and water. Just I got another little flavor thing. Nothing really combat specific there. And
Yeah, it would be definitely
Windwalk's
good
neat.
for hosting a masquerade ball.
Oh, okay.
Will might be onto something.
And then wait for the next one.
Windwalk?
Windwalk.
Yes. So he can escort his guests to the masquerade ball in the
Home.
clouds.
Oh, okay. It's
This
got to be done at home by 8 hours.
Yeah, this one does make
I
sense
mean, they
for
they can cast plane shift, but sure.
this one does make sense, Windwalk, for them to have. I mean, just from him being an air genie, but at the same time, I'm having a hard time figuring out why Windwalk would ever be helpful beyond maybe doing a favor, because it does talk very much
Yes.
about how the genies might do favors if they are appealed to by bribery, flattery, or whatever. Um, that's the genie's motto: bribery, flattery, slavery, chaotic good. So if the party needs to get somewhere at a rather quick rate, Windwalk could be helpful for that. Could be a favor that is granted to them. Now,
Uh,
it's a little bit, and you can extrapolate from there. It doesn't have to be the party. It can just be a favor was done offering Windwalk.
Yeah, Windwalk, it's a 6th level spell, and it's really great for a party like of adventurers to have. It's an 8 hour spell, 1 minute cast, 10 creatures, willing creatures. Assume a gaseous form and get a flying speed of 300 feet. And then, yeah, they dash and stuff. Basically, it's a travel spell. Essentially, it just lets you travel really, really fucking fast. Um, that's the only thing I can think of too. Yeah, like as a favor, or if most likely they're going to be somewhere remote, the genies, and that could also just be like a nice, easy kind of codified way to get the party back quickly. You know, you spent 2 sessions of them battling through the wilderness and a dungeon and all sorts of stuff to get them there. And they talk to the genie and then I'm not fighting them. And it's like, all right, we have our deal worked out. Let me get you back quick. Windwalk. And then the party could just fly back.
Yep, works for me.
Yep. Yeah. All right, and 1 a day each. Conjure elemental, air elemental only, makes sense. Creation, gaseous form, invisibility, major image, and plane shift. So not a lot of offensive spells. That's all the spells now. Conjure elemental definitely can be. Um, Conjuring an air elemental is helpful. It's just, but it's a minute. That's the only problem. It's kind of the type of thing I would just like have them already have that up.
For two reasons. One, because of the minute casting. Honestly, I forgot even about that. But also because
Hmm.
it's concentration. And we're going to see once we get into the
Oh
actions that
shit!
it has
Yeah.
another thing to concentrate on. And that takes away, if it has the air elemental up, which it probably will, that takes away just about it takes away any other spell that might be used in combat, more or less. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I would just have an air elemental minion that it
Hmm.
can call and throw that away as a spell entirely.
Yeah, I would say I would have multiple air based, elemental based minions. As we'll kind of get into once we cover the whole thing. I don't think this is that interesting in a fight on its own, and it's like they're some of like the highest elementals.
Air elementals are?
No, genies.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah, like the elder elementals, obviously kind of like stronger stat wise, but in terms of just like lore, is like the genies are like the ultimate.
Right.
So like they'll probably have elementals and stuff.
Yeah. Air methods, things like that. Just about really
Hmm.
anything if you just search air or elemental, you could probably find something fitting for a minion.
Yeah, and also since they take slaves, maybe them. Though I
Will
would
they
think the
treat
slaves
them
would probably be
nicely?
less likely. What?
I said they treat them nicely though, so like they're probably not sending them into combat to die.
Yeah.
That feels a little bit wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Overall, just the spell's nothing too exciting. Plane shift makes sense just to be able to easily get around, and I'm pretty sure you could take people with you, right?
You can
Yeah,
take
you
willing
willing
creatures with
creatures.
you.
Yeah,
So once again,
so
you
that
have
makes a lot of
a
sense.
situation where doing a favor for the party, they need to get to a different element or elemental plane, um, or You could use it to banish somebody mid-fight, but I think realistically what this would be used for is in combat would be for the genie to get away and to flee the fight, because they're intelligent. They see that a fight is not going in their favor. They're not going to stick around and die it out. So plane shift is their easy escape. They have a couple of other ones that seem to be escape focused: invisibility, gaseous form.
Hmm.
You could argue wind walk, but again, that minute casting time makes it not very reasonable. uh, so very elusive creatures, more than they are going to be offensively overwhelming with their spells.
Right. And then they have major image, which you can get creative with. Just kind of depends on your party makeup, the situation. I think it's fitting for a genie to have that sort of illusion. All right, then for actions, they have a multi attack where they make 3 scimitar attacks, which is a +9 to hit, reach of 5 feet, one target, and they take 2d6 plus 5 slashy damage plus 1d6 lightning or thunder damage. Your choice. So basically, an average of 15 damage a hit, 45 a turn if all three hit. Which at challenge rating 11 is
It's
up
decent,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, though you're not always going to hit. +9 is not anything crazy. Like my level 7 character has a +10 to hit. I miss a lot. So, and then they have Create Whirlwind, a 5 foot radius, 30 foot tall cylinder of swirling air magically forms on a point the genie can see within 120 feet of it. The whirlwind lasts as long as the genie maintains concentration, as if concentrated on a spell. Any creature but the genie enters the whirlwind must succeed on a DC 18 strength saving throw or be restrained by it. The genie can move the whirlwind up to 60 feet as an action, and creatures restrained by the whirlwind move with it. The whirlwind ends if I'm sorry, I did genie, not genie, loses sight of it. I'm not going to stop. This was your choice. A creature can use this action to free a creature restrained by the whirlwind, including itself, by succeeding on DC 18 strength check. If the check succeeds, the creature is no longer restrained and moves to the nearest space outside the whirlwind.
So
So,
kind of neat, but is an entire action to cast, if you want to call it casting. Um, it's nice to be able to restrain somebody on the field. DC 18 strength saves pretty high. If you're not putting that on somebody with good strength or proficiency in strength saving throws, very high chance that they're going to fail that. Seeing as I think if you don't have strength as a class requirement, it generally becomes a dump stat in some
mhm.
fashion. So, you're talking about -1, maybe 0 to it. So, yeah, that's about a 10% chance you aren't restrained. But again, we're talking about needing its entire action, not being able to do its scimitar attacks at all. And then even to move it in the future, it takes a whole action. So it's good in that you can drop it down, and if you restrain somebody and they don't get out, they're basically out of the fight, or at least heavily held back in the fight by being restrained. But moving it around, getting it as like a dynamic part of the battlefield, I don't think you're going to feel that at all with this Create Whirlwind.
No, I think one simple change will fix it and have it move with a bonus action. So on their first turn, they could cast it as an action, comes down on somebody, they make their save, and then as a bonus action, that same turn be able to move at 60 feet. And then any future turns, they zip around, smashing things with slicing things with their scimitar, and as bonus action, moving the crate whirling around to just try and like gather up the party. It's
Yeah,
5 foot radius, it's not a 5 foot diameter, so it's technically a 10 foot. Like it takes up 4 cubes.
right. That makes
So you could
sense. That's good to
absolutely
remind.
fit more than one character in there.
It's also 30 feet tall, so you could probably just say that, like, after a round of being in it, you go up 10 feet higher. Having that in the rules would make it more complicated. It's already 2 paragraphs to explain it all.
Hmm.
But that's probably something I would do as well, instead of saying, oh, it's 4 people in there, and sure, there's 30 feet more to go, but we're going to stop it there.
Sure.
That said, I think I'd probably go with the Monsters of the Multiverse approach and make it so that you can substitute one of the scimitar attacks for either this Create Whirlwind or a spell. If I was going to
Sure.
be making changes to this, which, let's be honest, I'm I would be making changes to this. I don't think I'd ever
Yeah.
use this stat block as is. Um, so either or though, I think would definitely work. Bonus action to move it, but where I worry about making it an entire action to get out in the first place is that means its first turn is basically a dead turn besides restraining somebody. And that's not really good for a monster, especially one that is supposed to be the focus of a fight. If this was a minion creature, then I could excuse it using its first turn to just get a restraint out there, but not for this. I mean, this is supposed to be the big hitter of the fight. It would feel a little weird if there was like three genies for some reason as I don't know, minions to
As
something else or
minions.
working as a group.
Right.
I mean, probably some
All at the
things you could
same
do there as the
masquerade
group,
ball.
but regardless.
I Actually, as a really high level encounter, it's they all summon the elder elemental of their appropriate elemental. So in this case, I think it was a tempest. I don't
Yes.
remember what the
The Elder
elder
Tempest, yeah.
elemental is, but yeah, it's the genies are working together to summon it, and then so like the party's trying to take it down, and they have to fight the genies
You're right.
along with it.
In that case, then it could work out well. And there is some good synergy between the whirlwind and the scimitar attacks, and in that being restrained means those will now have advantage. So in the event that it catches somebody and you've got other genies coming up and going to town on them, then that's great. But yeah, otherwise it's way too much to commit for a creature that's going to be on the battlefield for 3 to 5 rounds max.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think yes, being able to swap one of the three attacks for doing that or moving it makes a lot of sense and is in line with the new design standards that we keep seeing pop up. Overall, I really feel like the stat block is lacking because when I think, oh, I'm fighting a genie, and any type of the genies, it's, oh, this is going to be a crazy magical fight. What a magical powerhouse. We have all these ideas of what they can do. And the majority of the turns is whacking people with a scimitar.
They're most
Like, it's never
effective by
worth it for,
far.
yeah, it's almost like never worth it for them to Thunderwave. And that's the only really combat spell they have. Everything else, like out of combat utility type stuff.
Right. And
And
also
then
more
create Whirlwind, which isn't super exciting.
right. And then they have their fly speed of 90 feet, but then what can they do at range?
Nothing. Create
Nada.
Whirlwind. That's it.
Thunderwave is 15 feet max, so they can maybe hover
Hmm.
over top of somebody and then just Thunderwave beneath them, and that's something, but it's definitely not the again being cast at first level, taking up the entire action. All of these things make it just not really worthwhile to do at all. So we've
So
got some
yeah,
gaps.
yeah, yeah. I would personally add a lot more spells. Find lightning and thunder spells. Ranged attacks. Go up to really high level with it. Even bump up the challenge rating if needed. And then use the monsters of the multiverse design philosophy of being able to swap out one of the multi attacks to cast a spell as well. And then I think that will get you into that feeling of this like really magical powerhouse in this crazy magical fight. Do a
Yeah,
lot of illusion spells and stuff to mess with people's minds.
and if you don't go too high with the spells, you really don't have to change that challenge rating around either. I'd probably end up bumping up the HP because that just seems like how our games generally work. Is that whatever the HP given just isn't enough, and
Hmm.
for a really substantial fight, I'd be looking more at like 250, maybe 300 HP. But again, that's I think you kind of have to know your game and know your players on that one. But for just amount of damage it can do, keeping with that base of 45 damage on average per turn should give you a pretty good idea of what spells you can grab without it being too much. I think even a lightning bolt, yeah, lightning bolt about falls in line with that at 8d6. They might be a little bit lower, but in terms of the two scimitar attacks plus a lightning bolt, maybe that's a super high one, but that's probably about as high as I'd go. Now we're looking at third levels, so as long as you're talking first through third damage spells that again focus on air, lightning, thunder, whatever, you're probably going to be in a pretty good spot there, and it's just going to feel so much more interesting. Uh,
Very much so.
the other thing to consider though is that if you do that, there may be no reason for it to ever come down from flying, which can be detrimental to your martial characters who don't have spell casting. Your barbarians, your
Or
fighters,
ranged,
your
yeah.
monks. Monks, I guess, can throw a dagger or something, but it's really not that impressive. Which brings up the question of how would you account for that to make sure that like your martial characters aren't doing nothing in this fight and just I don't know, maybe pulling people out of the whirlwind.
I always struggle with that. And to me, it's always just kind of playing them non optimally, which isn't a satisfying answer, but it's the best I got for how an IDM, where it's, yeah, I mean, the best chance of survival would probably be them always staying 90 feet up in the air, swoop down to range if they need to, and go back up. And that, like, really, really, really limits what they could do, um, or what the party can do against them. But you're right, it is not fun, usually for like half the party. And so it's just kind of play where they just don't do that for no real reason.
Right, for the reason of we want to keep the game fun. um
Right.
I think what else you can do and try to consider is have if the party knows they're going to be fighting a genie beforehand, which I feel like most times they probably will. This seems like a weird random encounter enemy to just have sprung upon them. Being prepared is definitely an option, and I'd say that's
Hmm.
to some extent on the DM, right? Like if you know that there's going to be a creature that's going to rely on flying, your options are play them suboptimally or give your party a opportunity to fly. If they have the fly spell, obviously that takes care of some of your problems. Though now
Hmm.
it's a fun game of can the person who's casting the spell fly hold concentration? Are they going to drop it? Um, Other options you can go there though are giving them magic items beforehand, giving a uh in battle way to get the genie to drop down. I'm trying to think of what that might be, but right now all I can think of is lowering the ceiling, but that doesn't really make sense.
Maybe there's something they're protecting that's like on the ground, and they feel the need to come down. Like if a PC starts messing with it,
Right.
whatever it is, they feel the need to come down and physically intervene.
Just their treasure hoard.
Sure.
And that's something I'd
Yeah.
say I would give to I would put that on the players more so than on the DM. I mean, obviously, you should have. I encourage you to have a interactive battlefield as often as you can. It's definitely a little bit more work than just having like a static arena setup. But if there are things in there that the genie cares about, if the party knows about genies, they know what they like. They could probably know how to get under their skin pretty easily. I mean, these are creatures that are obsessed with living in comfort and luxury. So they have a massive statue. So what does the barbarian do? Sure, I could try and I don't know have somebody cast fly on me, or I could beat the crap out of their statue until the genie gets really upset about it and then starts flying down, takes it personally, things like that.
Hmm. Yeah. There's also spells to cancel. I know there's like the Earthbind spell, which is a second level spell.
Yeah, who prepares that though?
People who are
Well,
about to fight a genie.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, what you were
And I'm
saying
sure
though, I
there's
would like to kind of
others that will.
expand on, like the create whirlwind, like sounds really, really, really sucky. But if you do like play it optimally, the genie would have things to do with this. For instance, living on a cloud island and throwing you off of it. That's not fun. But what you could do is put like spike walls or pits or something, just something that isn't gonna just instantly kill whoever you do this to, and chucking people into it. I think that's actually pretty fun.
That is fun.
Okay, yeah.
And maybe even I'm trying to think of if there could be I want to say an element of randomness to it. Like you're in the whirlwind, but if you end your turn still in the whirlwind, then you get thrown in a random direction. And if you just have the battlefield kind of littered with these things, that could be a really fun way to play it, where everybody's like, okay, I'm about to get tossed, and let's roll the dice, and oh, which direction did I go into? It's the spike trap.
To go on that, this is what I was thinking. The air elemental itself, that it would summon or have as a minion, whatever, their
Yeah.
whirlwind does chuck you in random directions.
Oh, it
In
totally
addition to
does.
doing a little
Right.
bit of damage, which take it or leave it. But the DC 13 sucks, obviously, if you're fighting the Djinn. Take the Djinn's DC and
Yeah.
just take that idea and incorporate it into this whirlwind, because it is dull. You have to make it cool.
You're saying, is that something that the air elemental does?
Yeah, the whirlwind ability and the air elemental stat block.
Oh.
Because all of them do that one thing. The air elemental chucks you.
Yes. That is it. Sorry, I was looking at the conjure elemental spell, and I was like, I don't see this at all. It's also not a stat block, so that should have been picked up a lot quicker. But yeah, that seems perfect. I mean,
And
yeah,
it's actually more fun than being restrained for like 3 rounds.
yes.
I would rather just get chucked
Yes.
into a spike pit.
I feel that way in
Or
real
another
life
party
too.
member.
What do you do this round? I roll under the DC and just sit here.
Yeah, and that's just a
Yeah.
huge thing that I think I've been trying to get away from as well, like being really, really cautious about using anything that restrains or stuns players. It's just not super fun to lose your turn entirely, especially when it's something like you roll at the end of your turn, so you're going to lose it regardless, even if you succeed. It just hurts a lot, and just makes combat drag so much more. So yeah, I'm with you, Will. I think I'd honestly even consider taking this. I mean, restrain doesn't stop you from attacking, so this one might not be as bad, but just chucking them rather than forcing you to use up one of your entire actions to succeed a really high strength check. I mean, there's people in our party that if I got them on this, it wouldn't be beneficial for them to even try and use that action to get out. They would just have to accept that they're stuck in the whirlwind for the entire fight, unless concentration's
Yeah.
broken.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Ranger with a longbow, plus 10 to hit on that longbow. I would just take the disadvantage. You just keep shooting from it.
Yeah, and
Especially
that's
because I have 8 strength.
yeah. So 100%, you're getting chucked out of the whirlwind into a spike pit.
Yeah.
The preferred method.
Yes.
Something to think about just in terms of that ranged player aspect, though, is at the start, while they do still have their fly speed, while they're not specifically upset at the barbarian or something like that, that 90-foot fly speed is very commanding of the battlefield. Even if they're not going to be flying up in the air, attacking the ranger, not the ranged person, not the class ranger,
Yeah.
attacking the person who's making ranged attacks is going to be the optimal move for this creature, rather than trying to be up in the fray with a person who's doing melee. So that's something to keep in mind, is that I think they would use that movement to close the distance. It's hard for anyone to run 90 feet in a turn unless they're a rogue tabaxi, in which case it's a Tuesday. But if you're able to keep the melee attackers at a distance, even it doesn't matter if you're flying 90 feet above, you're still staying out of distance and causing problems for who's going to cause the genie the most problems, which is, again, your ranged attackers, your spellcasters, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which presents actually an interesting other gap in the spell list is Wind Wall.
Yes.
It's a wall of wind. It's not very good, but it prevents any arrows from coming through. And I would suggest that as a layer feature, as we were discussing, something that the genie can make. Like this is going to be the line, and then your range people, rather than just sitting and plinking away, have to figure out how to get a better angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point there, Will, or it sparks a good point. These could really, really benefit from layer actions. Like everything about their lore is they have a layer. That's where their slaves are, and like their shrines to themselves and their treasure. And it seems really, really lacking.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a cool one, being able to create a wind wall that lasts for the round on initiative count 20, typical layer action stuff.
Yeah, that would be good. I wonder what else
I
we
think
could.
maybe like a propulsion jet. Yeah, under a creature, like a strong gust of wind. They have to make a strength saving throw, or maybe Dex to dive out of the way. I'm not sure.
And just get
And
tossed
they
into the
get
air.
blasted up, like 30 feet, and then plunk,
Yeah, which is always,
land prone,
difficult.
3d6 damage or whatever. Yeah,
Exactly. It's not a huge amount of damage, but that knocked prone, even that can just change things up, right? Because now you got half your
right.
movement. What are you going to do about it?
And the damage adds up. It's just a free thing it could do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That actually, there is probably a thing for a very creative DM out there to create a randomized game where the wind blows with the dice, essentially, and the battlefield changes like every round.
Oh, almost like the gust of wind spell, but the entire battlefield.
Yeah, and you create a bunch of stuff like that and make a very, very dynamic fight.
Like it blows from like a different direction,
Mm-hmm.
like one of 6 directions. And then like if you're running into it, you have half speed. If you're running with it, you got double speed, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. That could definitely get really complicated to run.
Oh
Like if
yeah,
you
no,
do more
like
than speed, like yeah,
ridiculously
like ranged
complicated.
attacks will start getting affected, and obviously the genie would need to be immune to any of that movement.
I'm trying to think how complicated that would be to run. Because, I mean, yes, I guess the range stuff, there's rules there in the same vein as wind wall, where trying to shoot through it is just what? Disadvantage, basically?
I
No,
think it
it's
blocks
auto
all
fail.
arrows.
Oh, it's auto fail. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that definitely makes it hard. But you could have it be, something where if the wind's directly against you and you're making a ranged attack, it's an auto fail. If it's anywhere
Plinks
but
you right
with
back in the
you,
head.
yes.
Yep. That was silly.
It gets really weird though when the monk does a ranged weapon attack and then it comes back and they use the reaction to catch it and throw it, and then they hit themselves in
And
the
then
head
it comes
again.
back again. Yeah.
Oops, out of reactions. But yeah, you could do wind going against you, range attacks automatically fail. You got to find a different angle. Going to the side, it's basically half cover, and then going with you, you get a +2 to your attacks. And that's not
And
that complicated.
no. You pull out a protractor. You pull out a protractor. You tell everyone at the table how this is going to be.
You have to actually do some physics math here in order to determine
Yes,
how
real.
what your bonus or negative modifier is going to be.
Roll a D360 to figure out the exact degree.
Finally, a use for that die.
Yeah.
So that's 2 options. I do love the dynamic fights like that. Say we just did the purple worm fight, where for that one it's on initiative count 20. I changed the element type, and it's not an absolutely huge thing. It didn't have a ton of overhead for me to remember, but I did feel like it made you all make a couple of decisions. You especially, Ellie, as your character actually deals with elements a little bit more. So anything like that where you're kind of changing up the fight every single round can make these much more memorable fights. So I like that.
Yeah.
And tossing people out of whirlwinds. That's going to be a good one too.
Yeah. But yeah, I got nothing else on the genie.
Oh, I got something. Hooks.
Okay.
Hooks. Why, reasons
Hooks.
you would be fighting this creature in the first place.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there is in the monster manual the variants we should talk about too.
Yes.
So never mind. I spoke too soon.
That's all right. What we can never talk about too soon is that if you want to save 10% off your order at FanRoll, you can use the code MM10 and save on dice accessories, dice bags. I guess that's covered under dice accessories, but they have fantastic metallic dice as well as gem dice and liquid core dice and things of that nature. So yeah, check them out at fanroll.com and use the code MM10.
A rare mid-roll ad break.
Hey. You thought the episode was over? Nope, we got 30 more minutes of this shit. No. So yeah, in terms of hooks, one that I I guess, do you want to talk about the variant first, or get into other
It
stuff?
is better.
Okay, well,
Let's go
whatever.
into hooks.
Hook that I had was a kind of basic, like, wizard hires the party to shove a genie in the bottle. Like, hey, I want this genie, get him for me. And the wizard offers a favor from the genie once the job is complete. So basic kind of premise, but it can go multiple directions, which I always love with a quest when it can kind of branch off. The party could do the job as they're told. The party could keep the genie for themselves and get way over their head and make an enemy of the wizard and the genie that they're now having under their control. Or there's the option where the genie is actually able to persuade the party to work for them and offers, favors, gold, whatever, to go after the wizard instead. Not specifically air genie themed, but still just kind of a neat way to create, again, those like branching pathways.
Right. Or quite literally what is happening in our campaign, where
Yes.
we have a genie warlock and their patron has their rivals, and that's part of the agreement of getting their power to go and hunt down and take care of these rivals.
Yeah, and that's something that I think the genie warlock subclass has added to the flavor that I don't see too much in the descriptions given in the monster manual, and that is that genies have, not just genies, but genies have their domains on the material plane, and there are very often going to be land disputes of sort. Now, to claim territory, to control territory, that is always going to be it usually goes into a violent tendency rather quickly when you are a creature like this. So, taking slaves, that means people are missing. That's generally not a great thing to be happening, even if those slaves are treated really nicely. So, tons of reasons why a area might just want a genie gone or captured or something. I mean, it can really be however you want it to, and maybe it's the party's decision now of, do we want to drive the creature off and that's enough? Do we want to try and capture it, and then we've got this extremely powerful creature that's, again, it probably not best to leave it under the party's control, but somebody wants the genie for their own doing. Um, and yeah, really, anytime these come up, I think it begs the question of how do you defeat it? What is that defeat state? Because killing it might not always be, might not even make sense. I mean, they're so good at just escaping with a single plane shift casting that your goal might need to be something else.
Right. Or if the goal is to kill it, just get rid of plane shift.
Or change it into like a ritual.
Okay. Just like a longer cast.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a
Sure.
little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to turn into a fart cloud and go away, and that's not really that fun.
All right. And then last bit variants. Did you have any more on
Nope.
hooks? Okay. So within the lore, there are different sort of statuses of genies, like noble genies and kind of lesser ones. There's no official stat box for them, but they did put in these variant roles around disguises and wishes. We're saying some more powerful genies can cast disguise self at will, so they can disguise themselves and go amongst non-genie folk. Or even the more powerful ones can cast true polymorph on themselves as well to turn into really anything that they want. And then there's also wishes, with the very kind of classic idea within our culture, but like what a genie is, they grant wishes. And it calls out that like it's legendary among mortals, but most of them within D&D can't actually cast wishes, but the most powerful can. The variant for wishes says that they could cast between 1 and 4 for a creature, and they could do it like once a year, and each creature can only do it like once in their existence. So that kind of typical genie lore stuff. They might, depending on who the genie is and who the person making wishes for, might kind of misinterpret the wish to create issues, as the wish that's already built into the wish spell anyways. So that could be a whole other hook to go and find these genies, to go in to try and get access to the wish spell.
Or
The power of like hunting down a genie to get access to your 3 wishes.
or somebody already did find the genie and they are now really upset because their wish's intent was perverted. They exploited the wording, and they're hiring the party to just go beat the snot out of the genie because they're real mad about
Right.
it.
Sure.
But yeah, it is interesting that like the entire wish aspect like is not just limited. It doesn't even get its own addition to the stat block. Like it's more of an aside in the monster manual that's like, oh right, and by the way, I guess genies do this whole wish thing on occasion. If you were looking for that, when it's really what you kind of associate with a genie in the first place.
Yeah, I think it makes sense though, because from just like a game perspective, if they all had that sort of like reality bending magic at their will, like at their fingertips, that makes for a hard creature to build a stat block around and go and fight.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, it's like I know this is kind of like a silly example, but it does land true. Imagine trying to build a stat block for the genie from Aladdin, and then
uh,
like say your party go fight that thing and have any sort of chance.
yeah, that's probably not going to work out. He could do a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing
Yeah,
is,
unless you start adding in things like, oh, unless you grab the lamb, then you have control, and then that's just weird
yeah,
stats, and then like you don't want to put that in your game for your party to have control over.
no. And there is the limitation as well that it does kind of specify they can't use their wishes or their power of wish on genies. So my guess would be is that they can't use it on themselves as well. Like it can really only be used
Mhm.
for other people. That said, I don't see any lore specification as to where this wish power comes from. Like there's a lot of powerful creatures in the world. Why is it that genies get the ability to grant wishes? And I think that's a little
Yeah.
missed, I guess. And I feel like that's something I'd want to see expanded upon. I'm even, like seeing that as a gap. I'm now wondering like how I can work that into my world's lore, as we do obviously have, as you said, a warlock genie subclass character who's trying to beat the snot out of genies that their genie doesn't like. My genie could make your genie eat bugs. it's, the, it's the new name of this campaign.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean that's something like where does that wish power come from? What it talks about how they're connected to their elemental plane. Well, that explains where the turning into wind comes from, where creating whirlwinds and summoning air elementals comes from. But where does the wish come from?
It's because it's expected. It really kind of feels like it was just like a slap down thing where people see, oh, genies, and they read through and they're like, there's not a single mention of wish.
Right.
And people are going, oh, what the hell is this? And so they throw in a little variant about how that could work if you want that in there. And it's like, see, we mentioned it. We know. I really think that's the extent of it.
Yeah. Well, you can do better. Not you, Ellie. I mean, maybe you could do better. I hope you could do better. Uh, but listeners out there, you can put a little bit more thought into it and maybe think of where that wish power comes from. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
Very world specific opportunity, but opportunity nonetheless.
And with that, I think we're done.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Except for we didn't tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. So if you have a use for genies, or just any genie, I don't know if we'll cover the other ones because I feel like lore-wise there's a lot of overlap that it might not be particularly fun, unless we just did like a one episode blast through all the stat blocks and talk about how they're probably also not super exciting. It's always possible. If you have any thoughts on it though, feel free, please do leave a comment. Love to hear it, love to chat about it, and please do it before like a week from now from when this episode releases, because I've got a game. They're probably going to be fighting this genie like pretty soon, so let's pick it up. All right, let's get some good group building in. That's it. I don't know, what else am I supposed to say?
Patreon.
Oh
Support
yeah,
the show. Yeah, we don't need to do the ad, but
I already did that. All right, so thank you as always to our patrons. If you want to check out the Patreon, where you can get early access to episodes most of the time, as well as show notes and some campaign diaries and such, you can head on over to monstermulticlass.com/support, where you can find the Patreon as well as all of our others affiliates like Fanroll. So patrons are Ed G, Muddaweight, Brian H, Craig A, Isaac M, Luca L, Jeff W, Star Shinobi, Vincent M, Bob F, Joe P, Rick D, Sensible D20, Tyler S, Gray, Barons, Adam A, and Rob K. And one more person. We got a new one. It's Cameron C. Thank you, Cameron. Welcome to the Patreon family.
All right, and as always, thanks for watching.